I'm Sarah Russell.
I'm JQ Walker.
I'm Hind, and we are
The Neurodivergent Report, a research-based podcast by and for neurodivergent brains.
In each episode, we'll explore topics relating to neurodiversity and coping strategies by reviewing the literature and discussing current topics.
We will also have interview episodes where we sit down with experts in the field and listeners like you, with the hope that together we can all learn to heal in community.
However you are able to engage, thank you for being here.
All right.
Well, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
So I was telling my patients that I was going on this podcast, the Neurodivergent Report, and I was going to be talking about neurodivergence. And, they're excited about it. And we are talking about my books and how they're in my book and so on and so forth. And one of my patients said, "Are you, Sarah, neurodivergent?" So I said, "I don't know. I'll ask her."
Yes, definitely am. I am currently diagnosed with ADHD, although when I was 18, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which seems kind of weird now that I know everything that I know about psychology, but moving right along. I've spent the last 4 years as an ADHD coach, and the more ADHD specific research that I read, the more I started to question like the ADHD label itself as really being like, how useful is this really? And so that's why I really love the neurodivergent label. We're all sort of coming together in like a counterculture of community.
So I'm happy. I'm going to report back today, actually, and tell her.
That
She'll be
sounds
thrilled.
wonderful. Hello, I'm Sarah Russell, the host of the Neurodivergent Report, and today I am here with Dr. Nechama Sorscher, one of New York City's most respected specialists in neurocognitive challenges. You have a brand new book out called Your Neurodiverse Child, so I'm really excited to talk about some of those things. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for being here.
I was saying I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm going to recommend this as a resource for my patients. And I'm always looking around for resources because I think that those are essential in terms of identification, e-building, advocacy, really important. And, I think that what you mentioned, which was that I'm a therapist, I'm an evaluator, I'm an author, and they all kind of feed into each other. So when I'm writing, I'm thinking about my passion, which is to help people with neurocognitive challenges embrace themselves, feel good about themselves. My opinion is it doesn't matter what skill level you have. If you feel confident, then you can move forward and you can improve. But if you feel bad about yourself, you're kind of done. Like
confidence is essential to resilience.
Correct. Exactly right. And
wow. So why is that your passion? Like, why is helping neurodiverse people your passion?
Really good question. I think, as I alluded to, I have a learning disability myself. And I suffered a lot with my learning disability when I was younger because I was very confused. I had no idea why I did so well in some areas and so poorly in other areas. And it affected every single aspect of my life, not just academic. It affected me socially and affected me emotionally. And I was very puzzled by this. I've also always been very, very interested in child development. I'm the oldest of a very large family, and I took care of my siblings. I was
of course you did.
Second mom. And since I'm a teenager, I've been reading about child development, reading about psychology, and dreaming about doing exactly this, working with kids, writing books, testing kids. Like, this has been my dream.
Yay! Yeah. I know. I'm so happy for you.
It's really nice. And I thank you so much. Yeah, this is just like, so this is my passion. So when you get to do something that you love and that you feel, I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to go to my office, right?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see my patients because I love what I'm doing and I love helping them. And I also tune into that little girl, myself, right? Who felt terrible about herself, who felt depressed, who was anxious, who was confused. I did not go to 10th grade math class the entire year. I skipped 10th grade math.
Yeah, how?
I had a friend, and the friend didn't have to take math. I don't know why. So right after lunch, the two of us would just stroll over to the park, hang out in the park for like an hour, and then come back to school. I could not handle going to math class.
Yeah.
That is very significant. So I have a lot of sympathy for these kids with their anxiety and their depression and their feelings of failure. And I can say, listen, I've been there. I've been there.
Mhm.
And you know what? I crushed statistics. I got an A in graduate school in statistics because I figured it out.
At first,
And
I thought you meant you
yeah,
crushed statistics as in, like, you, like, weren't just a statistic, like, you went above and
oh,
beyond,
that's
like, so
class.
Well,
That's
that
fun.
too.
Yes,
yeah.
also that too. Yeah, I didn't let it define me.
Yeah.
That was very lucky. But I could have let it define me. I could have decided, oh, I'm stupid, good for nothing, can't do anything. Instead, I decided I am stupid and bad at math, but I'm good at other things. I'm good at reading and writing. Yay.
Yes. I've
So
said this before, but
tried
there's
with it.
a quote from the show Community with the character Abed, who I'm pretty sure is, like, confirmed in the show is autistic,
Yeah.
and he said, like, "My brain has other gifts." I think he was, like, having a hard time, like, reading a clock or something, like, as, like, a side thing, but, yeah, like, the this
Mhm.
that idea of, like, my brain has other gifts, I feel like, like, neurotypical people, every single person has their strengths and weaknesses, so
Was just talking to people with their doctorate this morning about how it's hard to mail letters and
Mm.
return packages. So, like, yeah, you can be good at some things and bad at other things. In
Oh,
child development, they call that having a spiky profile.
Mm, mhm,
Ask me how I know. I have a neurodiverse child. I have two, actually.
so do I.
mhm.
Are they all grown now?
The
Are you
youngest,
here to tell me it gets easier?
it gets much easier. The youngest is a freshman in college, and she has very severe dyslexia. She's in my book.
Hmm.
And she reads. And she told me, we went to Barnes& and Noble. We bought her this book just over the break. And this is a girl who could not read a menu when
Mm.
she was, I'll say 12. And now she was so excited, got this book. Mommy, I'm, really loving this book. So yes, it gets better. And I have to say, her self-esteem stayed intact. A lot of reasons for that, but
Confidence is so important. Yes.
I would go so far as to take a guess that you were probably a very big part of that, so, yeah.
I really credit her school, to tell you the truth. She went to a school
Mm.
where it was just for people with dyslexia
Oh,
and
wow.
so professional. And they just drilled it into these kids, how great these kids are. And everyone had dyslexia, and that was just the way it was. But every single person in the school, from the lunch lady to the gym teacher to the teachers, were trained about how to deal with children with dyslexia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
That's
is a
amazing.
privilege. Let me ask you, was your learning disability identified when you were a child?
Not at all. And I'm really But what was interesting was I kind of figured it out, I guess. But when I got to graduate school, I realized, because I was testing kids, I tested like hundreds of kids. First, I had my master's in school psychology. I was like, oh, I have a learning disability. At the time, they hadn't even come up with the word nonverbal learning disability. That happened later.
Hmm.
So when I heard about
Yeah, that doesn't even sound familiar to me. Yeah,
yeah.
love this.
But now they discovered it, whatever, and I read about it and I was like, oh, that's me, yay. And I was very
Mhm.
excited. I remember reading the description and saying, oh, wow, this is fabulous. And it all made sense, right? Then I was like, oh, that's why I have trouble with this. That's why I have trouble with that. That's why my social skills were off. That's why I didn't understand how to respond to certain situations correctly. Like
Mhm.
it all made a lot of sense. But no, when I was little, it was just, one time they put me in the special class for math, and I was so humiliated with who they put me with that I refused to go. I was like, I know, I cannot be with these people. No.
Mhm.
And so I do have, like I said, so much identification, and I can share these stories. And that's so helpful to actually my patients to just say, hey, I understand exactly what you're talking about. And let me tell you, I tried all those methods, avoidance, denial. It doesn't work. But I'll tell you some
Mhm.
things that do work, and I'll
Yeah.
help you. I'll roll up my sleeves and I'll help you.
Yeah.
I'm a very big believer in the therapist, the tutor, the parent, the teacher, working with the kid. Not necessarily giving the kid the answers, but you need to sit with the kid and you need to be there with the kid while the kid's
Connection.
working. Exactly. And that's what I did for years. I had two jobs, right? I was a therapist, whatever. And then I came home and then I was a homework helper to my two kids who needed me
Uh-huh.
to help with their homework for different reasons. Years of this.
Mhm.
And even now, I still help my daughter sometimes with her college work. My son doesn't need any more help. That's okay. I was very happy to do it.
Were your parents really involved in your education? And now, how did they miss it? But, yeah,
Sure.
obviously you
Well,
didn't
so
get
I'll hit
the
gender
help.
first. So girls in general are misdiagnosed. You both mentioned actually misdiagnoses, underdiagnoses. And a lot of it is because girls are more socialized, right? And
Mhm.
girls are more mature. They're more mature emotionally. They're more mature socially. They're more mature from when they're a baby. We're not talking about, you know, they're more mature when they're 5. They're more mature when they're 10. They start out more mature and they keep
What does
on
that mean functionally, like in the brain?
in the brain. So what it means is girls have a higher chance of survival when they're babies, right?
Hmm.
They're more socially engaged when they're babies. If you look at,
Hmm.
you know, the highest rate of survival in the NICU, for example, are girls, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So
I
maturity, neurological, developmental maturity starts very early and it doesn't stop until, they're 26 years old. Like the boys don't catch up for a very long time.
Mhm.
God bless them. And they have other strengths, right?
Their
But
brains have other gifts.
their brains have other gifts,
Yeah.
yes. But if you go into, I don't know, a first grade classroom and you look at what's going on, the girls are all sitting there, listening, taking out their thing, writing very neatly, having a great time. And the boys they're just besides themselves,
That
right?
is so interesting because I always assumed, and I mean, I'm sure this is part of it, but it's interesting how you're talking about like the neurological mechanism because I always assumed that it was something just there's just more expectations on girls and it's more kind of forced upon them. So that's just
A good point too. And that's
yeah,
interesting. Kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
right, right,
But
Yeah.
when they're babies,
exactly. That
hey,
means
I feel like there's something neurological.
yeah, yeah.
And then there is something social cultural, right? So the social cultural is that girls are expected to be better behaved. And the neurological thing is that they usually are able to adhere to those expectations. Now, in
Mm,
terms of my family, my parents were both highly educated, um, but they
Mm.
weren't very involved with any of our education. And in some ways, that wasn't a horrible thing, right? There was like a lot of benign neglect. But for example, I never knew when there was a test, what homework I had to do. I mean, I knew nothing. And my parents also knew nothing. And,
Mm.
they just were like, it's okay, it's okay. And they always took my side. If the teachers ever complained about us, they always took our side, which in some ways I think actually was a very good thing. I went to a religious Jewish school where you learned Hebrew in the mornings and English in the afternoon. I went to school from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, and I went to school on Sundays. So it was
boy.
strict education. What I did with that is I read books the entire time, and nobody could take my books away from me. The teachers tried, they tried to have me, engage in the lesson. I was this. I was reading the whole time I was in school. In fact, one time I looked up and everybody was gone. And I decided that it must be recess. Oh no, it must have been time to go home. So I went home and my mother's like, what are you doing here, Nechama? I know, I looked up, everybody's gone. She's like, it was recess. That's how out of it I was. That's how spaced out of it, right? And my mother did not, unlike other mothers, maybe would have gotten upset, would have whatever. She's like, okay, you guys school tomorrow. Like they were, and in some ways, like I said, it was good for me because I didn't need extra pressure. I couldn't conform. I could not conform. So I didn't need any extra pressure. I knew already I was bad. I knew already this was wrong, right? So I didn't need any extra pressure from my family to tell me, well, you better straighten up, Nahama. So they just left me alone. And eventually, sixth, seventh grade, I decided, you know what? I want to, be social. I want to be more a part of the class. So I applied myself and started realizing when I should do homework and when I should study for a test and so on and so forth. But it took me a very long time. I was classic, but my parents were not really involved in this. And
Mhm.
maybe part of it was because I was a girl. Girls' education wasn't as crucial as the boys. Maybe if I'd been a boy, they would have been more concerned about it. Actually, I'm sure that that's true.
Mm.
Hmm.
It's a different time periods as well, a little bit. We both sort of had our diagnostic experiences in like the 90s and 2000s, and you were growing up before then.
A long time ago. But that's a really good point because I do get kids come to my office, 11 or 12. Dr. Sorscher, I have autism. Dr. Sorscher, I have ADD. They are so much more aware and so much more sophisticated. And I love that. I love that about your generation. I love working with them because they're so self aware, right? And they'll question and they'll challenge and they'll be like, but this, but that, and there's something really unique actually about kids growing up today with all the information
Exactly.
that really is fabulous. So,
Mhm.
it's a fabulous generation.
Yeah, I mean, and not to, I mean, maybe this is me just being like, ooh, devil's advocate, but like, while I 100% agree, there's also something to be said where it's like, well, you hope that with all this information, it's accurate information and that, yeah, that that was the end of the sentence. That's it.
Right. And they're not always right. And they're
Yeah,
wrong about plenty of things,
yeah.
plenty. But what I love about it is the awareness, the openness, the lack of judgment. You mentioned, for example, gender identity.
Hmm.
So there is actually a big overlap between neurodivergence and queer in whatever
Yeah.
category, right? Very often it comes out in gender identity. I myself have 3 patients who are neurodivergent and trans.
Hmm.
And I don't think that that's such an anomaly. Like, I don't think I'm the only therapist in the
Right.
city as trans and neurodivergent patients, right? And they come together. But I think part of it is we're so much more aware. I don't think there's an epidemic of autism, for example. Let me
Yeah.
just, no,
Oh
Yeah,
there's
boy.
there's
not.
gonna be a whole episode
No,
about
we're
that.
already tackling that. Oh god. And during Autism Awareness Month, no less.
Thank
That's
you.
yeah,
A marketer's best dream.
I know.
Right?
Celebrating Autism Awareness Month with RFK Jr., the episode.
Thank you.
um,
But I think there's more
yeah.
sophistication, right? There's
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
awareness. And people are like, oh, when I was growing up, they thought I was a brat. They thought I was being picky. They thought I was sensitive, right? They thought I was slow.
Yeah.
But I'm on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. And we need to respect that because again, what does that help us, right? Well, then we know there's something different about the way you operate, something different about the way you process stimuli. And then we can help you. I can say, you know what? When you're getting overwhelmed, take a break.
Hmm.
Give yourself a sensory break. Don't take 5 classes, take 3 classes. Give yourself some time to decompress. Very simple suggestions. Understand your sensory overload. Put yourself on a sensory diet. Your life will change.
Yeah, and
Their
I
life.
think you're giving them permission to, which like unfortunately I think some people feel like, I mean myself included, like that sometimes you need permission to be able to do these things, and that not only permission to do things that are maybe specifically not neurotypical, but even things that are just would be beneficial to anybody. Like taking some time for yourself is good for anybody. But late stage capitalism and all that jazz. So
Yeah, I was
yeah.
not taught to like glorify time spent doing
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, my dad's nickname for us was Hustle Russell. My mom, like, I never saw her sitting in the couch. She was always doing something for someone else. It was like, yeah, so those are really the models that I had. And so, like, yeah, really trying to convince me that I need to do less and that will make me feel better in the long run. I have to experience discomfort now to feel better in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very
Helping people to realize like what is going on with them so they don't get these labels put on them of like they're slow or like they don't know what they're doing. And I think that in some maybe family dynamics, or even it could be happen in like a friend situation or with like in a romantic relationship, I think that sometimes to have such high strengths, to have like, such a spiky profile, like such have high strengths in something and then not do well in other things, it happens where people assume that it's out of like malice or like it's out of like you're doing it purposefully, being like,
you
"You're
must
so
not
smart. How
care.
can you not do
Mhm.
this?" So it gives people an explanation and like a way to advocate for themselves, even in their own interpersonal relationships.
Correct.
So,
Even the way you think about yourself. Like one thing I work on a lot is the myth of laziness. Because
hmm
I tell you, all my patients come in and they say, Dr. Sorscher, I'm lazy. I'm
yeah,
unmotivated. I don't put in enough effort. And I say to them, that sounds like something you've heard over and over and over again. And you've heard it so much that you believe it. And then
hmm
guess what? You make it true. And I'm like, listen, you are not lazy. In fact, you are working extra. You're working so hard. Just get up in the morning. just to brush your teeth, just to do some simple things that some other people think are very easy, but are hard for you, right? And yes, it affects you in every way. And then people will say to you, well, you're just not putting in enough effort. You don't care enough. You're not prioritizing me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Listen, just tell them, say, listen, I'm showing up. I'm doing the best I can. And then I'm like, listen, do some very simple things. Make a list, check things off,
Yeah.
put things on a whiteboard. Simple hacks.
Exactly. These are things, again, like they sound so simple, but I mean, I used to be all over the place. And something as simple as like making lists for myself, having post-it notes, having some alarms or a Google Calendar and like my whiteboards. Like these are simple things that one, you're giving them permission, and two, you're putting them like you're putting it in their awareness to be like, these are things you can do. And yeah, not everybody does this, but like it's
Well,
a totally regular thing
yeah.
to do.
It has to be
Correct.
simple because otherwise we're never going to reach for it if we're already overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's simple. I explain to my patients is you can do things that are easy, right? They're hard for you, but they're easy to remember. I try to really give them like little sound bites, even in terms of talking to themselves.
Mm.
I'll say, you know what? Make friends with all your parts. Let's say there's a part that feels overwhelmed. Let's say there's a part that feels scared. Make friends. Make friends with your parts. Say, it's okay. I can feel sad. I can feel scared. Understand where it's coming from. And then we can move together. And as I said, I do it with them. I don't just have them do it by themselves. Sometimes what I'll do is, okay, let's do some emails together in the session. Or I'll
Yeah.
even say, I'm going to email your tutor. I'm going to email your doctor. I do
Yeah.
my and then I follow up. I'm like, hey, did they get back to you? Or if they have a paper to do, I'll sit with them and let them do the paper with me. And I'll just look
Mhm.
at them and say, you're doing great. Keep on going. And we transition.
Body doubling.
Yes, exactly. Body
But
doubling.
being their safety.
And I
Yeah,
say,
helping them to co-regulate in an activity that would normally be dysregulating for
Yeah,
them.
and like being outside of themselves because maybe they'll start engaging in that talk of like, oh my God, why can't I just start this? Oh my God, am I just being lazy?
right,
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
exactly. And parents can do that, teachers can do that. Sometimes it's as simple as just tapping the person on the shoulder. Really, just a simple little tap, a simple little reiteration of the directions changes the kid's life, not just day, life.
Mm-hmm.
They will remember that. They will remember that person who reached out to them and was sympathetic and understanding. I just had that
Mhm.
the other day with a kid who had been diagnosed with ADD and LDs in college, is taking physics, and really struggles with the sense of himself as unmotivated and lazy, and went into a spiral and stopped going to class. And his physics teacher reached out to him and said, hey, you've been a great student this whole semester. Are you feeling okay? Are you in the hospital? And he said to me, you know what? This is the first time a teacher has ever reached out to me or thought that I was a good student or was worried that I missed class.
Mm.
And here he is beating himself up. I missed class. I'm back in the same pattern. I'm a terrible person. I said, look what you did. You were great all these months. So great that the teacher recognized that you're a good student. You don't have to hold on to that bad student. You can embrace being a good
Right.
student. You're not perfect. You're going to go back in time sometimes. You're going to get disorganized. You're going to, drink or smoke or whatever you're going to do. And you're not
That
perfect.
is so black or white thinking too.
And
That's
that,
like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I did one bad thing. I'm a bad
Oh my
person forever.
that,
goodness. Oh,
and I had tears in my eyes because I was just like, wow, you are a success story. And meanwhile, he's like beating himself up. I'm like, no, no, no. Success.
Mhm.
yeah.
If I would have
Mhm.
told you that this was going to happen to you a couple of years ago, you would have looked at me as if I had 10 heads. So the point is, when you're making progress, it's not always straight up, right? As you
Mm-hmm.
said, spiky, right? Up and down, but you always are,
The trend is still positive.
you're trending up. Yes.
The ball is rolling up.
Yeah.
And we gotta
Yeah.
keep that in mind as parents, as therapists, as teachers. We got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Just for ourselves, actually, to tell ourselves that.
No matter how
Yeah,
old you
I
are,
mean,
it's
I
it's good to have
don't give
that.
myself enough grace. I
Yes.
know my kids don't give themselves enough grace. Maybe the 2-year-old, I don't know what he's capable of. I don't know. But yeah, that is that is such a common theme in neurodivergence, because of all of the negative messages that we receive and all of the negative social like interactions that we experience.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's really it's really great to hear also that you're helping people to recognize what a success looks like, because I wish that I had someone do that for me when I was a teenager, honestly. Um
Yeah, honestly, like one of the
my
first times
therapist when I
that
was a teenager was just like, "Yeah, you have to like listen to your parents' rules." I don't know. I was like, "Cool, cool."
oh, I
Sounds
feel like
not
one of the
bad.
first times that I truly I mean, like, I did really like, I did well in school, so, like, yeah, like, I became, like, honestly, some harsh expectations of, like, needing to do that all the time, but, like, I feel like one of the first times I mean, it was one of the first times that I knew what was going on with my brain was after I got diagnosed, like, the psychologist, he was like, "I just need to tell you, like, it is amazing that you're here," and was, like, going through statistics of, like, unemployment and, suicide, like, stuff like this, and he's like, "The fact that you're here and that you did well in school and that, like, yeah, I've had issues, like, with figuring out what I want to do and, like, and sustaining work and focus and blah, blah, blah." And he's just like, "The fact that you're here is, like, awesome, like, good job." And I feel like that specifically have that kind of praise, like, to have, like, the reinforcement of not only are you doing a good job, but you're doing a good job even though you have all of these challenges in front of you. Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
the point, is that people with these challenges do work very hard,
Mm,
even if it doesn't seem like they are.
yeah.
Because let's say sitting down to do the task might be harder than completing the task itself,
Mhm.
right? So my feeling is, hey, it's really hard for you to sit down to do it. So let's not focus on the fact that you're procrastinating or whatever. Let's just focus on the fact that you got yourself to sit down to do it,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, what do
that's
you really
part of
need to practice?
right.
Mhm.
That's for you, that's hard. For somebody else, doing the task might be hard.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But for you, that's easy. You got the big brain there. You're fine with doing the task. You just have to figure out how to get yourself to sit down to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely let's circle back to the fact that it is currently April for the next week, and it is Autism Acceptance Month, Autism Awareness Month. I want to ask you, as a very esteemed professional, what sorts of misconceptions that you've ran into about autism and ADHD specifically? Because I have, like, just in the past year alone, I've heard some crazy
Crazy
stuff.
stuff.
Actual medical professionals.
Yeah. I mean, I would say let's start from when the kids are little. I think a big misconception of these kids are being oppositional
Mm,
and these
mhm.
kids are being bratty. I hear that a lot. This kid is very defiant. This kid doesn't care about consequences. This kid just, could care less. And I'm like, no, most kids, I'm not sociopathic, all right? Most kids really care. So if there's something going on, I reframe it. I'm like, why is this kid having trouble conforming, right, to directions? Why is this kid having trouble meeting expectations? What's going on in the environment and inside the child, right? And very often, what I like to do is I do a school visit so I can see for myself, right? What's going on with this kid in this situation, in that situation? And usually it's, to me, it's extremely obvious. They're not being bratty, they're not being mean, they're not being malicious. So, and that actually does keep on translating itself. So I'll give you another example. So let's say these kids, they're picky eaters. So I hear certain words. I hear picky eaters. I hear oppositional. I hear manipulative. Okay. Those words, when I hear
Mhm.
those words, I'm like, oh, I think there might be something else going on. I think these kids
Mhm.
might be neurodivergent. And I start asking questions. For example, well, are they bothered by the texture? Are they bothered by the temperature? I get to find out if they have a lot of sensory sensitivities. I get to find out if they have auditory processing issues. I get to look at the whole picture. But those are very, very common misconceptions. I'll say some other misconceptions. So another common misconception is that people with autism are not empathetic, and people with
We
autism do
talked
not
about this.
have any feelings.
Yeah.
Mm, Okay, I'm kind of like, where do you get that from? Again, Do they maybe demonstrate empathy or feelings exactly the same way that a neurotypical individual does? No.
Hmm.
Do they have just as much empathy, engagement, deep feelings, awareness? Yes, they do. We just have to understand how to talk to them and how they express it. One of my patients, brilliant girl, sweet, lovely, kind, generous soul. Okay. Likes to have friends, wants to socialize. When she was little, the parents and the teachers would say to her, why do you always have this face on? What's with your face? And basically, she was, frozen like her. She had kind of a frozen black kind of affect, and they would always be thinking that she was upset. And because she was so sensitive and wanted to please, she actually learned how to put on a fake smile. And her teeth and her jaw would hurt her at the end of the day because she was fake
Oh my
smiling
goodness.
all the time. So nobody should ask her, what's wrong with your face? And, you're just a mean kid who's, I don't know if I can't curse on here, I guess, but
You can curse on here. So
okay, then she's a bitch, right?
yeah.
Okay, if you're that's what you're saying about a child. Child is never that. Never,
Yeah.
never.
And,
If you
like, what
talk
is
about
wrong with you that you're talking about children this way
I
also? It just, like,
know.
okay,
reeks that you need compassion for yourself because, like, if you
Yeah.
can't have compassion for children, then you also don't have compassion for yourself. To me, it seems so obvious, but I don't think the rest of society sees this, like, swirling mess.
I
Yeah.
don't I mean, look, so this is interesting because she diagnosed herself, okay?
Mhm.
And then she got a lot of pushback from all the people around her. Oh no, oh no, oh no. And then she came to me and I tested her. Oh yes. And that was a fabulous moment for her, but she suffered so much, right? And part of why she suffered was because she knew how to mask. She knew how to mask from a very early age, right? So she figured out how to play the game, but she suffered and had so much anxiety that she couldn't even go to school. Now she's taking a full course load at college. She's doing fabulously. But she could not go to high school because of how much she was suffering. Because, masking has a lot of impact on the individuals. You're working hard to be fake, right? That doesn't work
And to
ultimately.
Hmm.
suppress, like, your body's innate
Yes.
cues.
Kind of a side question. I'm sorry to like put you on the spot with this. I think it's like something just to discuss like in the midst of this conversation is I think a lot of people want to understand the difference between masking and then like like quote unquote normal like social like code switching or like being in a certain way. And like would you be able to like articulate that difference I guess for the people listening?
Sure. I think it's a really good difference.
Mhm.
In other words, let's just take this person for an example. So, is it always terrible for her to put on a smile? Let's say she's meeting somebody new. I'll get an example. Is it terrible for her to put on a smile and engage in some small talk, even if it makes her anxious and she feels awkward, right? No, that's okay. She can't do it all day long, right? She needs to be she can't have her parents, when she comes home, say, what's wrong with you? You must be upset because she's reverting back to her natural state. She has to have time to do what's natural for her. Doesn't mean that in every situation, none of us are our whole authentic selves in every situation, right? So masking in small quantities is totally fine, right? It's like code switching. If I'm with a member of my family, we use a lot of Hebrew and Yiddish words. Okay. If
Mhm.
I'm on this podcast, I'm not going to use any of those words because you don't understand that.
Mhm.
And similarly, so I can code switch and it's okay. But if I had a code switch all the time and somebody said to me, you know what? No Hebrew, no Yiddish. You can only speak
Mhm.
English. I would feel under a lot of pressure. I would feel repressed.
Mhm.
Have to have more flexibility. Flexibility is the key, right?
Mhm.
I'll take this patient again just because she's such a great example. So she has a really hard time with food, a really hard time with smells. And for a long time, for example, she couldn't go to Thanksgiving because she just got very overwhelmed, right, by the food, by the smells. And we finally figured out, how she could participate. She doesn't sit there during the meal. Yeah, we just figured out how to do it. But when she was little, she suffered, right? Because not only did she have to sit at the table, but then they would make her try things, make her eat things that she didn't want to eat, right? That's not okay. Is it okay to ask a child to try something every once in a while in a little dosage at home when they're comfortable? Sure. Is it okay to force a child to eat something in front of a whole bunch of people When they're already feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated, no. So situations where you mask and where you don't mask, it's a lot of it is context,
Hmm.
you know? And I truly believe that most people on the spectrum understand that instinctively, right? But they can go overboard more on the masking than on the not masking. Like it's
Yeah.
more like I have to encourage people like, listen, when you go home, give yourself an hour to stim, right? It's like,
Hmm.
oh no, no, that's not okay. No, that's okay. Give yourself an hour to stim. You'll feel fine afterwards. Do what you need to do. Now, you're not going to stim in class, right? But maybe you'll crochet in class, right?
Hmm.
You find a way to do what you need to do that's also, is not terribly distracting to other people.
Hmm.
And parents can do this also. Parents can, let's say, the parent is taking the kid on a trip, right? Trips are very hard for kids on the spectrum, right? You can't expect the kid to behave the entire time they're on the trip. So you figure out a situation that works for the child. Maybe you take them in the car instead of on the plane, because on the plane, they disturb the other passengers. But in the car, if they bend your seat, it's okay, right? So you figure it out. But to have the expectation that people on the spectrum are always going to mask, that's the problem.
Thank you.
Agree. I don't think that anyone should have to always mask who they are. But things like code switching sometimes can be like, I don't know, ways to keep the communication going. Um I
Hmm.
mean, and that's really the goal when you're talking to another person is like, ooh, we're understanding each other. We're keeping this conversation moving. And yeah, sometimes neurodivergents use like hacks, like code switching, like quoting movies or like doing random musical theater stuff in order to keep that
Like
communication
basically,
going.
like being a little bit inauthentic in the moment, just like ironically, like so that people can truly see your authentic like intentions, having to come across as inauthentic. Well, like
Mhm.
or having to deliver it in an inauthentic way. Um,
Exactly. I think in small doses, it's fine, but you don't want to have that anticipation of yourself, even, right? That you're going to be
Yeah.
able to do that 100% of the time.
right.
That's why it's so important to find the community. And my patients are great at that, actually, in a lot of online communities where they really, vibe with each other. And I really encourage my patients when they're on those online communities to participate. And it's a real relationship. They really get a lot out of it.
Hmm.
If they're on the stream, if they are on Discord, these are ways that they can communicate and be themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, I mean, maybe I've just gotten really lucky, but I've also surrounded myself with a great community of people that are some neurodivergent and some are neurotypical, but they just love me for me and they just want to understand and they're open. It feels like I'm not trying to like convince them that I need this thing or that I exist in a certain way. And instead it feels I'm just sharing something. They're like, okay. Or if I do something differently, they're like, oh, that's just how Julia does this. But I know they hold me in a high positive regard to be like, I know that, like, you know what I mean? Like, am I explaining that? Well, okay.
Yeah, that's really the goal. I also run groups for adults and even the parent group. The goal is exactly right.
Mm,
That the person feels no matter what they do, whatever their idiosyncrasies are, whatever quirks they have, there's the unconditional positive regard, right? That's the most important thing a parent can give a child.
yeah.
Most important thing friends can give each other, just, hey, I like you for who you are with all your warts, doesn't bother me,
Hmm.
which doesn't mean that every once in a while you can get into a fight, right? Like,
Oh,
that's going to,
yeah.
they
It
might get
happens
on
to
your nerve.
everyone.
Happens to everybody. But there is a level of comfort because you feel like, oh, they have a high regard for me and they know me.
Yeah.
They understand me and they know me. And that's crucial for anybody. Like a lot of these things are very true even for neurotypical individuals.
Exactly.
I think it's harder for neurodivergent individuals because they're more quirky, right? Where some people might get put off.
It's just that they're not fitting the expectation of whatever situation it is. So it's just they have to change their concept of what I feel like it's hard to talk about because I'm talking like generalizations right now, but like they have to change their concept of whatever the thing is, like how they deliver empathy or how they communicate something, whatever it is.
That's what we're talking about. That
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stereotype is, and the stereotype is even that people on the spectrum, right, don't even have feelings, right? Or that they can't be productive members of society, or they don't pay taxes.
Oh my
Not,
God.
not true at all. Nothing that is
None of
true.
that is true. Yeah.
They work
Yeah.
hard.
Great example, though, of someone who's autistic who's not paying taxes, though, is Elon Musk. But these kids won't be able to experience life invested in yourself. Like the word autism, like comes from like self-absorption. So like that's from the beginning of the conception of what we thought of it. Like that it's based off of that idea. So it's, hopefully with time we keep moving away from that.
Misinformation
But
is always deeply rooted.
yeah. I mean,
Why I don't say autism.
Mhm.
I don't love that
Yeah.
because I feel like it really sets people up. They have all these, like you said, deep rooted misconceptions, right? It is savant,
Attached. Yeah.
so on and so forth. And I feel like it's much more of a spectrum, obviously. And I think neurodivergent really captures it a lot better, or
Yeah.
neurodivergent than. And by the way, in my book, I talk about everything: autism, ADD, LD, so on. Part of it is it all kind of goes into each other. You can't really
Pull them apart too
pull
much.
them apart,
Yeah.
just like you can't pull apart the anxiety and depression and low self esteem that comes along with it, right?
Mhm.
And that could be because of trauma, that could be because of social expectations, that could be because of your own frustration, right? There's a million different reasons. And I feel like it's important to take it away somewhat, even though I do think diagnosis and labeling is, like I said, a little bit helpful, but it could also be a little bit damaging and
Yeah.
dangerous. Particularly if you're like, oh my God, I'm just a selfish,
Right.
this person. Like I do not want anyone to feel that way about themselves. I just don't. And I don't even think even kids who are quite on the spectrum, right? I see it all the time. They want to connect. Sorry. They just don't connect in the ways that maybe are so typical, but
Mhm.
they always want to connect. You can always see it. Might be a little gesture, a little something, a little look, a little smile,
Yes.
but I always see it. And I haven't met the child yet that I couldn't connect with, and I don't think it's because I'm such a genius. I think it's because children want to connect,
Mhm.
Yeah.
whether they're on the spectrum or not.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that's always, when I hear that, I'm like, what are you
They
talking
just
about?
like to connect in different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like my toddler is probably definitely on the spectrum, and he does cuddle, but like usually it's him putting his face on my face and just pressing up against me until
Yeah.
I like receive him. I'm like, okay, that's how I know he's looking for connection. You know, somebody else's kid might just come up and be like, "Mommy, want to snuggle?" But not mine. We do face presses.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that's
So cute. And it's delicious, right? And and they are seeking you out, right?
yeah.
Maybe not seeking you out verbally, maybe not even, running up to you and giving you a big hug, but that is a seeking out, which
Yeah.
is, what else do you want?
Couldn't ask for anything more. Um, okay,
That
let's talk about your book some more because I'm really curious. As a neurodivergent person, how did you write this thing? Like, was it in like bursts over the last 10 years?
this book took me no time to write because it flew out of me.
Mm.
It's what I do every single day. It would be like if you had to write a book about
Passion.
what your day is like, right? What gets you up in the morning. I wrote this book for no other reason except this book was inside of me and I had to get it. So it was the easiest thing in the world to write because I do it every day. It's kind of like
Amazing.
brushing my teeth. And I had so much fun writing it. And I'm now writing a third book for people like you, Julia, and I'm enjoying it a lot as well. Because it's, I just feel like it's a labor of love. It didn't have, something to do with anything other than this is my platform and I want to get this out. And I'm always curious to hear what other people's feedback are, and I've been hearing that somebody gave me a very nice review on, I don't know, Goodreads, and that makes a big difference to me. But really, I just put it out there for people to receive it.
Obviously, actionable strategies are super needed right now. Because there's just not a ton of guidance for parents. I mean, okay, stop. There's too much guidance for parents, I think, but it's not like varied enough. It's not all like evidence-based enough.
Well, I want to add two things as I realized I want to say something to you about how I wrote the book. So, one thing is I also compensated for my learning issues and my attention issues. And the way I compensated for it was I had a fabulous editor.
Hmm.
So I just wrote it and then she edited the hell out of it. And then I incorporated her suggestions. And I used it in a way to improve my writing. I learned how to write better by writing it and having her edit it. So she was like like I keep on talking about the support and the scaffolding. So she was my actionable strategy. Okay. She was my tool.
Accountability partner.
She was my accountability partner, but she was just,
But yeah.
she was teaching me. So I was also learning how to organize, how to write, how to express my ideas as I was writing the book. So the ideas were there, right? But making it to a nice, pretty framework, I needed help with that.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of my actionable strategies, right, are using resources, using tools, and we keep on talking about this, tools that are easily available. And I do agree, parents in some ways are inundated with information, and in some ways they don't have enough information. And they're
Yeah.
not empowered enough. They're blamed, actually too much, right? In some ways, and in some ways they're also told, get out of the picture. You're overly involved. And I can't tell you how many mothers come to me and they tell me, I know there's something wrong with my kid, but my pediatrician says, don't worry about it. Or I know there's something wrong with my kid, but the teacher says, you're being overly involved and stop helping them with their homework. And I say to them, thank you for coming over here. I believe in you. And one of the things that I feel like the book does is really empowering the parent. Because I do believe that mothers and fathers are on the front line. They know their child. And if they say there's something going on, there is something going on. I have not yet had a mother come in and say, I know there's something going on. And I'm like, you know what? It's just a helicopter, mom.
Yeah.
It's not going on. Back it up, And when a parent says that they're very involved with their child, it's usually because their child needs that involvement. They're like, I'm like, they're like my editor, right? They come in and help the child do what the child needs to do because the child needs it. It's not because, I always would say to the parents, you did high school, you went to college. You don't need to do second grade again. You're doing it because your kid needs it. Now, we might say, maybe it's better if the kid works with a specialist. Maybe it's better if the kid goes to a different school. Maybe it's better if the kid, does karate after
Yeah.
school, whatever it may be. We may give suggestions about it, but it's not because the parent is overly involved. It's because the parent is floundering and people actually aren't.
Struggling to accommodate themselves and their family and their children all the time.
Correct. And
Struggling
they're
to stay grounded and
correct.
managing tantrums.
And they're not being told, they're being told like it's your fault, right? On one hand, and on the other hand, they're being told, don't diagnose,
They'll be fine.
they'll be fine, boys will be boys, blah blah. And so it's hard. It's hard to be a parent in today's world. It's hard. So I feel like my book is a little like a friend. Here's some friendly advice. Here's some resources. Here's some tools. Here's some tips. Use it as a resource.
So where can we get this book?
On Amazon, just look up Nechama Sorscher and it will be right there. Very easy to get.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the link in the show notes
Yeah.
there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Yeah. We want people to be able to access it.
Yeah. Yeah, you've put like such a wonderful resource out there. So yeah.
I have to say, I think it's pretty well done. They did a good job with it.
Heck yeah.
I feel like that's good. I'm gonna ask about the other event.
What is
And look
it?
what so it's a parent workshop. It's to improve so this is how I envisioned it. So it's to improve self-esteem in kids with neurodivergence. And I'm going to do some introductory remarks. But then what I did was I lined up some really fabulous resources from the community, speech therapist, occupational therapist, special education tutor, ABA guy. And I'm going to do breakouts. And I'm just going to say, hey, parents, here are all these resources. Here you all
Yeah.
are. Network with each other and network with these professionals you know, and give them some time to do that. And then I'm going to do some wrap up comments. So it'll be educational, but mainly, again, I'm kind of practicing what I preach, right? And I keep on talking about community. I want to do
Community
some
and
community building.
connection.
I want the
Mhm.
parents, I'll be thrilled if they buy my book. Sure, great. But you know what I want more? I want them to say hi to another parent. And I have a child that does XYZ. Wow, I have a child also that does that. That's what, if they do that, I don't care if they buy my book, right? I shouldn't say that, but it's true. I
Yeah.
will that they'd have made a friend who could support them, right? And also let them get some professional resources that maybe they don't know about and that they could use for their child. So
Mhm.
that's my vision of that event.
That's beautiful. That's gonna be
Selfishly,
great.
do you have any plans to do this virtually?
You know, that's a great idea. I'll have to touch with my wonderful PR agent, but that is a really great idea. I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it wouldn't be impossible for me to go, right? You know, it's
Right.
like a 2-hour train ride.
That sounds like a
Plus,
huge plot. You don't need to do that. I think you're right. I think Zoom is a good idea. We're also offering childcare, by the way, which I think is kind of cool. Even though
Oh,
I know, isn't
I
that
love
great?
going into the
yeah.
city. It's
Right?
so like it makes me feel so old-fashioned and cute. I don't know.
Wow, the brand new
Um,
bright
That's
lights of the city.
childcare. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think we got a very nice response. We got over 50 people who want to come. So
Wow.
we'll see. But I've learned that actually getting 40, 50 people is like a coup beyond. So I'm like, okay,
yeah,
great.
that is not easy.
I've learned that. So
Amazing.
yeah, so I'm excited about it. And yeah, I don't see why I couldn't do a Zoom,
Fantastic.
like a webinar.
Well, we'll we'll stay tuned and see what's in store for you.
Well, hopefully, you'll bring me back up when I talk about my third book. That's my big
Yeah. Wait,
before.
I
I
mean,
can
you
talk.
you alluded to it before. Is it too early to share what that is about?
No, for sure. It's for individuals. So, my first book is for therapists,
Mm.
how to work with patients. My second book is for parents and teachers. And my third book is for the individuals themselves. So in that book, for example, I talk about medication because in the other book, for whatever there's reasons for it, but I don't talk about medication. But in that book, I talk about how to wade through all the medication options, how to wade through all the treatment options, how it affects relationships, how it affects
Ooh.
parenting, how it affects you as a parent, right? I knew as a neurodivergent parent, right, that I was going to struggle with certain things organizationally, that I had to really work on because when you're a parent, you really have to be a little more together. So, it's those type of issues for people like who are like in their 20s and through their 90s.
Mhm.
So I'm excited about it. And,
That sounds like a thicker volume.
it might be, yeah, I talk about culture and race also.
Yeah.
Just interesting topics. And obviously, it was all evidence based. I'm doing a lot of research.
Yeah.
I love to read about, neurodivergence. That's like my another other passion I have. So I take all the research and I,
Similar to us doing the show. And
yeah, I can nerd out on it.
oh, yeah. I mean, we've talked to many of our guests about this. You are totally welcome to come back on the show at any time. Like, please, we would love that.
But
Yeah.
right now, I'm working on the role of fathers, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, because I think that they are very, kind of missed. Talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah, definitely somebody needs to gang up on the no.
but all the research, all the studies are mothers. But fathers are very impacted by this too. And a lot of fathers are neurodivergent themselves
Yeah.
and can use the help. And, it's really not easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to do an article on it and I've talked about it on a different show. I'm very interested in that,
Yeah.
Where
helping out.
can we follow you for more?
Oh, just on my website. I post everything on the website. I have a very nice
Mhm.
website, I have to say. There's different things. I've been doing
Awesome.
a lot of things. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great to meet you.
Thanks for being here. If you want to connect with the Neurodivergent Report, you can find us at ND Report Pod on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, etc.
If you're looking to support the show, the best thing you can do is subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Please do that.
And hey, if you want to check out more about us, visit our website at ndreportpod.com. And you can also go there if you want to be a guest contributor on the show.
Until next time, be well, do good.